Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Ellesmere, and I'm here to talk to you guys about 10.2 HPAL. Unfortunately, I am very sick, so I'm going to have my cam off for this video. But I'm just going to kind of briefly talk over everything in a pretty casual setting that you'll need to know about the changes that were made to HPAL over this PTR cycle. Unfortunately, this PTR cycle was not very friendly to HPAL. We had a fantastic rework in 10.1.5, and since then, it's been nothing but nerfs. Some of them warranted, however, it does seem like they over-nerfed it a little bit to compensate for the God comp in M+, which sucks for Raid and sucks for M+, for that matter. Aside from generic throughput nerfs, the main thing that got changed was hard casting. Holy Light and Flash of Light got buffed very significantly compared to our spenders, which got nerfed very heavily. This is what the general M+ build is going to look like in 10.2. Now, the biggest changes that we're not going to be running Boundless Salvation or Tears Deliverance. We're also going to drop Overflowing Light, and in exchange, we will pick up Tower of Radiance, Inflorescence of the Sunwell, and Veneration. Additionally, you're going to see things like Divine Revelations picked up and Moment of Compassion. So what this means is, yes, unfortunately, we will be casting in M+. Now, this does not mean that we're going to be casters. It just means that we will be casting Flash of Light for spot healing a lot and Holy Light whenever we have Divine Favor. So because we're running Divine Favor instead of Hand of Divinity, every 30 seconds, you're going to get a really powerful Holy Light. You want to spend that on Holy Light, not Flash of Light. And the reason for that is Holy Light is just the bigger heal, especially when it's amplified by 60%. And its cast time is reduced. The cast time reduction on Flash of Light makes it actually faster than your GCD. So you don't really get much value out of the 30% cast time reduction. And the mana cost reduction, you don't really get any value out of either if you spend it on Flash, because you're going to have a lot of infusions. So it's likely that you're going to be pressing this with infusion, which means Flash of Light is already completely free. It doesn't cost mana. So because of all those things, Divine Favor should always be used on Holy Light. And if you don't have Divine Favor, then you should be spending your infusions on Flash of Light for spot healing. Aside from that, the kit in M+ is very similar to last season. Not a whole lot has changed outside of casting more. With the new tier set, we're not really going to be prioritizing the Holy Prism the way that we did in last season. And in fact, once we get our new tier set, it's possible that we switch from running Holy Prism to running Light's Hammer, but that kind of remains to be seen. Currently, I believe that Holy Prism should be the stronger heal, but there is a 40% buff that was supposed to happen to it that didn't end up going live. We think that's a mistake and that it likely will end up going live at some point. So when and if that happens, Holy Prism may jump up in terms of rotational priority. One of the biggest downfalls of HPAL in M+ currently and in Raid is that our mana management is horrible. Our mana consumption is extremely high, and our mana return options are very minimal. But the best way to conserve mana is actually through spot healing with Flash of Light when you have infusion procs, because of how little the spell costs. So this build utilizes Divine Revelations, Moment of Compassion, Inflorescence of the Sunwell, and Tower of Radiance in order to make it so that your infusion spending on Flash of Light is very valuable and at a very, very low mana cost. The general rotation of this build in Mythic Plus is going to look something like this. You're going to want to keep Consecration down at all times. You want a Holy Shock on cooldown. You want to use your infusions on Flash of Light or Holy Light if you have Divine Favor available. Spend Holy Power on Shield of the Righteous mostly. Now, this is going to be a little different for people because most players are used to spending their Holy Power on WoG. Now, that doesn't mean it's not okay to use Holy Power on WoG. You're definitely going to want to use Holy Power on WoG sometimes. However, most of your spot healing should come through Holy Shock and Flash of Light, and only WoGing if you really need that extra spot healing. Otherwise, you just want to send on Shield of the Righteous because our spenders are fairly weak in comparison to infused Flash of Light casts. So make sure that you're spending a lot of your Holy Power on Shield of the Righteous. Remember, with Shining Righteousness, you're going to get a lot of priority damage from that. And you're also going to get a lot of free Word of Glories. Because we're running Veneration, you want to press Hammer of Wrath basically on cooldown. Judgment should always be pressed on cooldown as well because we're running Righteous Judgment. Crusader Strike is actually a pretty good button to press in this build because we run Holy Infusion. What that's going to do is make it so that your Holy Power generation for Shield of the Righteous is very high, so you're just pumping out a lot of damage. And then finally, you're going to Holy Prism whenever you need to spot heal on the move. Again, not 100% sure if you're going to end up running Holy Prism or Light's Hammer. So depending on what that final build ends up being once we switch tier sets, I will let you guys know on Wings is Up. For Raid, the playstyle changes very significantly. This is what our Raid talents will generally look like. The playstyle of this build also revolves heavily around Flash of Light, but because our spenders got nerfed so significantly and you don't really have a reason to dump into Shield of the Righteous in Raid, we've ended up at a point where our Holy Power spenders are so weak that you actually just don't want to press them unless you have stacks of Dawn. So I'd highly recommend that you have a good way of tracking your Dawn stacks and that you never press your spenders in Raid unless you have at least one stack of Dawn. The Holy Power tracker that I created will be gray whenever you're in Raid, and it only turns pink whenever you have Dawn stacks. So I found that color change to be very useful for me to stop me from casting spenders if I don't have Dawn stacks. I've linked that weak lore in the description below. The other big difference in playstyle between Raid and M+, is that in Raid, you don't want to use Crusader Strike, Hammer of Wrath, or Judgment basically ever. The reason for that is because our Holy Power spenders are so weak, you almost always would rather press Flash of Light or Holy Shock or Barrier of Faith or Holy Prism or one of our stronger buttons that aren't just pure Holy Power generators that don't do anything else. So our general Raid rotational priority is going to be Holy Shocking on cooldown first, Barrier of Faithing on cooldown, using infusions on Flash of Light or Holy Light if you have Divine Favor available, just like M+, and then spending your Holy Power on Light of Dawn or Word of Glory whenever you have at least one stack of Dawn, and finally using Holy Prism on cooldown. Your last priorities, again, are Crusader Strike, Hammer of Wrath, and Judgment. Only press those if you have nothing else available and don't have any infusion procs. That pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about in this video. If you'd like to go a little more in depth with any new talents that you don't recognize or new cooldowns that we had gotten, make sure to check out my 10.1.5 video where I go over all of that, which is still very relevant. And finally, if you're interested in trinkets, stat priorities, and everything like that, visit wingsup.com. I will link in the description each of the sections on Wings is Up that talks about those different things. That's it for now, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments.